Launch, launch, launch.
This is a Chinese hypersonic glide vehicle traveling through the atmosphere at a speed exceeding Mach 5. Its target, the U.S. Navy's Gerald Ford-class carrier, is situated 500 miles from the Chinese mainland. The U.S. Navy sensors have detected the launch and relayed information to the operating officers. Now, the carrier strike group has only about 5 minutes to deploy countermeasures and eliminate the threat before it makes an impact. Will that be enough reaction time to save the aircraft carrier? If the answer is no, we are entering a generational shift in military strategy. But before we can answer the question, we must take a step back. Not everyone is familiar with rocket science, and we have some explaining to do. Mid-range and intercontinental ballistic missiles are distinct for their suborbital flight, meaning that they leave the Earth's atmosphere after the initial boost phase. While flying outside the atmosphere, they are in the so-called mid-course phase. When the warhead, along with the possible decoys, re-enters the atmosphere, it is in its terminal phase until it hits the target. Ballistic missiles are known for their ballistic trajectory, which offers a degree of predictability of their path and target based on initial boost. Many ballistic missiles are able to achieve hypersonic velocities when entering the terminal phase, but the term hypersonic ballistic missile is generally only given to those that can be maneuvered before hitting their target and don't follow a simple ballistic trajectory. Now that we have covered the basics, we can move on to the real thing. Ever since the Taiwan Strait crisis in 1995-96, China has heavily invested in the carrier killer concept. The result? Dongfang 21D anti-ship ballistic missile with a range of 900 miles. The missile is able to fly at hypersonic velocities, significantly decreasing time from the launch detection to the impact, complicating air defense efforts. It utilizes a maneuverable re-entry vehicle, or MARV, with terminal guidance system, which, on paper, allows it to hit moving targets. China has successfully tested the missile in 2013 by hitting the Mach aircraft carrier in Gobi Desert. Hypersonic weapons travel at speeds greater than Mach 5. Many traditional ballistic missiles, such as the Dongfang 21, re-enter the atmosphere at hypersonic speeds, but their terminal velocity is reduced by air resistance. This is where hypersonic glide vehicles come into play. They follow a less predictable path and are capable of a high degree of maneuverability before reaching its target. This makes them especially hard to intercept by conventional air defense systems. When dealing with standard anti-ship ballistic missiles flying on ballistic trajectories, you can predict the missile's path and target after the launch. But with the hypersonic glide vehicles, you can't tell where it's going after the initial boost. It's able to swirl hundreds of miles and attack the target from unexpected directions. The DFZF hypersonic glide vehicle, launched from the Dongfang 17 missile, is set to become the main carrier killer in the Chinese arsenal. With the ability to fly at hypersonic speeds between Mach 5 and Mach 10 and perform complex mid-flight maneuvers, it is supposed to evade anti-missile defenses and strike at the heart of the carrier group. Its sheer kinetic energy, along with a powerful warhead, is more than enough to sink the world's largest ships. But to make the kill, it needs to be able to hit a moving target. When a hypersonic glide vehicle re-enters the atmosphere at hypersonic velocities, a plasma sheet will develop, which disrupts its communications and sensors, making it almost impossible to hit a moving ship. However, the vehicle can also carry nuclear warheads, and near misses would be more than enough to sink the carrier. But let's keep things conventional. If nuclear weapons get put to use, aircraft carriers will be the least of China's concerns. Currently, the only other solution to the problem is to slow down the speed before the impact, but that will make the hypersonic glide vehicle more like the standard anti-ship ballistic missiles, such as the Dongfang 21, which are more vulnerable to interception by air defense systems at terminal phase. The Chinese are actually claiming that they have solved the problem and that the DFZF can hit moving targets, but whether that claim is accurate remains to be seen. In order to hit the carrier, China would have to locate it first, and that is no easy task. Finding a carrier strike group in a vast ocean is rather difficult, especially when you don't know where to look for it. As far as it's known, China hasn't been able to develop the over-the-horizon ground-based radar yet. It has launched numerous radar-equipped satellites over the years, but they can only help as much. China could send out long-range reconnaissance planes to look for it, but a US carrier group expecting trouble keeps a Hawkeye radar surveillance plane airborne around the clock. Thanks to the inescapable curvature of the Earth, the Hawkeye, being high up in the sky, will detect a recon plane long before it can find the carrier. Shortly thereafter, the carrier's fighter jets will make sure the recon plane gets nowhere near the group. Also, when it comes to conventional aircraft carrier-killing missiles that could be launched from China, the US Navy has protection. A carrier doesn't operate on its own, but as a part of a carrier strike group. It's accompanied by at least one cruiser and a destroyer squadron of at least 2 destroyers or frigates. Accompanying ships are tasked with the defense of the carrier and are equipped with the Aegis defense system, which provides missile protection. Aegis is an integrated naval weapons system that uses a combination of computers and high-tech radars to track and guide ships' air defense missiles to intercept enemy targets in the air. The US has also developed the Aegis Ballistic Missile Defense System, or BMD, specifically to counter the threat of anti-ship ballistic missiles. Remember those cool pictures of an aircraft carrier sailing at the center of a strike group with cruisers, frigates, and destroyers around? Well, that's just for the photo shoot. Support ships are usually deployed at depth, providing a layered defense for the carrier. Each layer is then able to try to intercept incoming threats. If each layer has an 80% success rate, and we assume there are 3 layers, 1 in 100 missiles would actually reach the carrier. Also, the carrier itself or support ships can use clutter or EW countermeasures to confuse the sensors of the incoming missile. The fact that the US has heavily invested in a vast network that allows it to detect ballistic missile launches from all over the world will give just enough warning to the carrier group to deploy countermeasures and prepare for interception. Now we know that the US Navy is far from defenseless against the Chinese missiles. But how would those defenses fare in a real-life scenario? While powerful Aegis radars and sensors allow American ships to detect and track incoming missiles, they still need to be intercepted. Against the Dongfeng 21 missile, the US Navy's primary interceptor, the SM-3 missile, would be ineffective. It's designed to intercept the missile at its mid-course phase. And since the DF-21 travels at hypersonic speed, there just wouldn't be enough time to hit the missile before it re-enters the atmosphere. The SM-2 Block 4 missile is utilized to intercept targets at terminal phase, but the DF-21 warhead will be performing high-G maneuvers, which will severely complicate the interception. Luckily, the Navy has developed the advanced SM-6 missile, which is more than capable of defeating the DF-21 at its terminal phase. This is where the hypersonic glide vehicle comes into play. Let's imagine a hypothetical scenario. China has invaded Taiwan, and a US carrier strike group is en route. Thanks to a combination of high-tech satellites and luck, the Chinese have been able to pinpoint the current location of the group and launch several DF-21 missiles along with one DF-17 carrying the DF-ZF hypersonic glide vehicle. The carrier group, expecting trouble, is high on alert. Navy sensors have detected the launches and accompanying ships are ready to protect the carrier. Dealing with a salvo of anti-ship ballistic missiles is a difficult task, but thanks to the layered defenses of Aegis-equipped ships, timely deployment of countermeasures, and with the help of new SM-6 missiles, all threats are neutralized. All except one. Thanks to its ability to glide at hypersonic speeds and maneuver and swirl hundreds of miles off course, the DF-ZF hypersonic glide vehicle is able to make the approach from an unexpected direction and successfully hit the carrier. The US Navy's Gerald Ford-class carrier is sunk, along with its carrier wing. If the Chinese were actually able to crack the DF-ZF's ability to hit moving targets, then this is quite a possible scenario. Strategic implications of the mere possibility of this occurring are substantial. Some may go as far as claiming that aircraft carriers have become obsolete and the entire concept should be abandoned. This is still a hypothetical scenario, but we can expect at some point in time that the Chinese will master the necessary technology to allow the HGV to hit moving targets. The good news is that the US has recognized the threat and are heavily investing into defense against such weapons. While directing energy weapons that could defeat such targets are years or decades away, the US is developing a hypersonic glide vehicle that could be used as an interceptor. It's all ifs and when for now, but at some point in the future, hypersonic weapons will become a reality. It's still too early to call this a generational shift in warfare or render the carrier concept obsolete, but it's safe to say we are looking at another arms race in the not-so-distant future.